Okay, hello, 12C, my copy of The Great Gatsby. As promised, we're going to carry on. We're going to develop our knowledge of Chapter 4, and we're going to go into Chapter 5 today as well. Just a quick reminder, at this point here, we're now into Jordan Baker's story, and she's going to tell us the story of Daisy and her heartbreak owing to Gatsby. So at this point, we've heard that she's going to get married. We've also heard of this gossip, this presumably engaged to a man from New Orleans in February. However, in June, she marries Tom Buchanan with more pomp and circumstance. We spoke about that today. We spoke about how that really mirrors Gatsby, or you could say that Gatsby actually mirrors Tom in this sense, because he's the one who follows Tom. He sees that Tom has succeeded. How's he succeeded? Well, this pomp and circumstance, this string of pearls valued at $350,000. The whole floor of the Malbec Hotel, 100 people in private cars, all of these things are links to Gatsby's party. So Jordan was a bridesmaid. She came into her room half hour before the bridal dinner and found Daisy now lying on the bed, as lovely as the June night in a flowered dress, and as drunk as a monkey. We looked at this today, this juxtaposition of two similes. She had a bottle of Sauterne in one hand and a letter in the other. Okay, so Sauterne is a type of wine. So clearly that's how she's got drunk as a monkey. "Gratulate me," she muttered. "Never had a drink before, but oh, how I enjoy it." I'm going to try not to do accents. In fact, I'm going to try not to read as much as possible, but hey. "What's the matter, Daisy?" I was scared, I can tell you. I'd never seen a girl like that before. "Here, dears," she groped around in a wastebasket she had with her on the bed and pulled out a string of pearls. "Take 'em downstairs and give 'em back to whoever they belong to. Tell 'em all Daisy's changed her mind. Say, Daisy's changed her mind." Well, at this point, clearly Daisy is pretty trashed. She's drunk as a monkey. The fact that she says, "give these pearls back to whoever they belong to," this is quite interesting. She's not even mentioning Tom by name. So here I've got Tom is so unimportant to her at this point, she doesn't even name him. So Gatsby is clearly dominating her mind now. She began to cry. She cried and cried. I rushed out and found her mother's maid, and we locked the door and got her into a cold bath. She wouldn't let go of the letter, so she's grabbing this letter for dear life. She took it into the tub with her and squeezed it up into a wet ball, and only let me leave it in the soap dish when she saw it was coming to pieces like snow. So we've got this other little simile here, like snow. Now, snow melts, doesn't it? So snow does not last. When Daisy sees that the letter is becoming like snow, she realises, I need to pull it out. She's desperate to retain the letter. Why? Because it's her one piece of Gatsby that she's got left. But she didn't say another word. We gave her spirits of ammonia and put ice on her forehead and hooked her back into her dress. This word hooked, it's kind of treating Daisy as a piece of meat, isn't it? Now, why do they do this? Well, I would say that they're not concerned with Daisy's turmoil at all. They're probably interested in it and they feel sorry for Daisy, but for them, it's more important the societal pressures, the pressures on Daisy to retain appearances, are much more important than her emotional turmoil. It's kind of symbolic of the time. And half an hour later, when we walked out of the room, the pearls were around her neck and the incident was over. Next day at 5 o'clock, she married Tom Buchanan without so much as a shiver and started off on a 3-month trip to the South Seas. I saw them in Santa Barbara when they came back, and I thought I'd never seen a girl so mad about her husband. If he left the room for a minute, she'd look around uneasily and say, "Where's Tom gone?" This is kind of interesting, I've underlined this, her husband. She doesn't say she'd never seen a girl so mad about her man, she's about her husband. So, could suggest that she has seen a girl Daisy, mad about a man, Gatsby. So was she more in love with Gatsby than she was her husband? She's never seen anyone so in love with a husband before, but she did see Daisy and Gatsby. So perhaps it insinuates that they're more in love. And here Daisy as an emblem of Tom's old money. So we see Tom driving around with Daisy. Daisy is now conforming to this old money of Tom. So it says, where's Tom gone? And this is about Daisy, and wear the most abstracted expression until she saw him coming in the door. She used to sit on the sand with his head in her lap by the hour, rubbing her fingers over his eyes and looking at him with unfathomable delight. Okay, this is an unconventional romance, isn't it? Unfathomable delight. It was touching to see them together. It made you laugh in a hushed, fascinated way. This links to the unconventional. Something strange about this romance. Makes you laugh in a hushed, fascinated way. So again, this links with appearances, doesn't it? The appearance of these two have the effect of making you laugh. That was in August. A week after I left Santa Barbara, Tom ran into a wagon on the Ventura Road one night and ripped the front wheel off his car. The girl who was with him got into the papers too, because her arm was broken. She was one of the chambermaids in the Santa Barbara hotel. So the girl that was with him got into the papers too. So we know that Tom got into the papers, bit of a scandal. And then we get the next April, Daisy had her little girl. So if you can do the maths here, we've got August. This is where we find out that Tom's been having an affair with a chambermaid. So do the maths. August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. That's 8 months. Daisy actually gives birth 8 months after we find that Tom's been having an affair. So clearly he's been having an affair while she's been pregnant. Interesting use of the pronoun here, her. The next April, Daisy had her little girl, not their. It doesn't say their little girl, it says her, insinuating that perhaps Tom does not want much to do with this baby. It's owned by Daisy. And they went to France for a year. I saw them one spring in Cannes and later in Deauville, these very sort of high-class areas of France. And then they came back to Chicago to settle down. Daisy was popular in Chicago, as you know. They moved with a fast crowd, all of them young and rich and wild. As you know, we've got some polysyndetic listing here. And this is symptomatic, or sorry, symbolic of the jazz age. This age of exuberance, young, rich, wild. But she came out with an absolutely perfect reputation. Perhaps because she didn't drink. It's a great advantage not to drink among hard-drinking people. You can hold your tongue, and moreover, you can time any tiny irregularity of your own so that everybody else is so blind that they don't see or care. Perhaps Daisy never went in for armour at all, and yet there's something in that voice of hers. You can hold your tongue, moreover you can time any little irregularity. This is a reference to infidelity. You can time your cheating, your infidelity, so that everyone else is so blind they don't see or care. So if you don't drink, you become smarter, you become sharper, and what benefit does that give you? It gives you the benefit to hide your deceptions. Okay, what have I got up here? This links with... so this links with the fact that Tom was cheating on her before she was... even when she's pregnant. And here I've got... Okay, you can hold your tongue. Restraint, dishonesty. Oh, yeah. So restraint, the restraint from drinking, means that dishonesty is an advantage. if you stop drinking, or you don't drink in the first place, then you can be dishonest. And that's something to strive for, according to Jordan Baker. Not sure I explained that one so well. About 6 weeks ago, she heard the name Gatsby for the first time in years. It was when I asked you, do you remember? If you know Gatsby in West Egg. And after you'd gone home, she came to my room and woke me up and said, "What Gatsby?" And when I described him, I was half asleep. She said in the strangest voice that it must be the man she used to know. It wasn't until then that I connected this Gatsby with the officer in her white car. This model of purity. When Jordan Baker had finished telling all this, so we go back to Nick now. We had left the plaza for half an hour and were driving in a Victoria through Central Park. The sun had gone down behind the tall apartments of the movie stars in the West 50s, and the clear voices of children, already gathered like crickets on the grass, rose in the hot twilight. I am the Sheikh of Araby. I'm not going to sing this, I don't even know how it goes. I'm the Sheikh of Araby, your love belongs to me. At night when you're asleep, into your tent I'll creep. If you were with us at Stocky in Year 11, you'll know about A View from the Bridge and about the significance of the song Paper Doll and the lyrics of that song. We've got another classic example, song lyrics in novels. If the lyrics are printed, then you've got to ask yourself why. Well, for this one, I think it's pretty obvious. I'm the Sheikh of Araby, your love belongs to me. At night when you're asleep, into your tent I'll creep. It's a pretty clear reference to Gatsby being the Sheikh of Araby. Your love belongs to me. Daisy's love, he sees it as a possession. At night when you're asleep, into your tent I'll creep. So a clear allusion to when he actually goes to Tom and Daisy's house, and obviously he's trying to steal Tom's wife from right underneath his nose. And here, this is Fitzgerald having a bit of a laugh. It was a strange coincidence, I said. Well, what is a strange coincidence? He follows this little lyric with this sentence. Don't think that's an accident. I think he's having a bit of a laugh. The fact that these children are singing this song, that's a strange coincidence, because what's going on in our novel? Well, somebody is trying to steal somebody else's love. But it wasn't a coincidence at all. Why not? Get back over here. Gatsby bought that house so that Daisy would be just across the bay. Now it's all coming together. Why has Gatsby got this massive mansion? Then it had not been merely the stars to which he had aspired on that June night. Remember when Gatsby is reaching out across to the light, to the green light? Well, now Nick's putting two and two together. He came alive to me, delivered suddenly from the womb of his purposeless splendour. Another beautiful Fitzgerald line here. Gatsby suddenly becomes alive to Nick, meaning that he was dead before. He saw Gatsby as perhaps dead before. Perhaps dead, perhaps vacuous, or soulless. That is what death is, isn't it? Someone or something without a soul. And he's delivered suddenly from the womb of his purposeless splendour. So this splendour of his parties is purposeless, or it was right up until this moment. Nick's been going to Gatsby's parties, he's had fun, he's been drinking, but it's all very, very vacuous and very shallow. He saw it as purposeless. But now Gatsby has been born from this womb. Suddenly Gatsby is purposeful, and this brings him to life. He wants to know, continued Jordan, if you'll invite Daisy to your house some afternoon and then let him come over. The modesty of the demand shook me. He had waited 5 years and bought a mansion to where he dispensed starlight to casual moths. Casual moths are a metaphor here We've talked quite a few times about the parasites that visit Gatsby. Well, these casual moths kind of emphasises the insignificance of the guests here. So he's done all this so that he could come over some afternoon to a stranger's garden. Did I have to know all this before he could ask such a thing? He's afraid. He's waited so long he thought he might be offended. You see, he's regular tough underneath it all. Regular tough, meaning he's actually pretty soft. Regular, just like a regular man. Something worried me. Why didn't he ask you to arrange a meeting? He wants to see her in his... Sorry. He wants her to see his house, she explained. And your house is right next door. Why does Gatsby want Daisy to see his house? Well, because it's all for her. Everything he's created is superficial. It's all for her. Trying to capture her through her shallowness. Daisy loved the thought of Tom turning up with 100 people, all the cars, renting a whole floor of a hotel, and giving her this pearl necklace. And Gatsby sees this, so he's trying to capture Daisy through her shallowness, or what he sees as her shallowness, emulating Tom's wedding and gift. He sees that as the way to Daisy's heart, through her love of material possessions. Oh, what do we call it? Conspicuous consumption. Oh, there we go, Nick. Nice and simple, to the point. I think he half expected her to wander into one of his parties some night, went on Jordan, but he never did. Then he began asking people casually if they knew her, and I was the first one he found. It was that night he sent for me at his dance, and you should have heard the elaborate way he worked up to it. Of course, I immediately suggested a luncheon in New York, and I thought he'd go mad. I don't want to do anything out of the way, he kept saying. I want to see her right next door. Well, when I said you were a particular friend of Tom's, he started to abandon the whole idea. He doesn't know very much about Tom, though he said he's read a Chicago paper for years, just on the chance of catching a glimpse of Daisy's name. This highlights the extreme lengths that Gatsby goes to prove his love? Or is this a little bit sinister? Obsessive? It was dark now. As we dipped under a little bridge, I put my arm around Jordan's golden shoulder. Remember these colours, this constant gold, yellow, referring to Jordan. Talking about wealth, but also talking about this jaundiced character, this corrupt character. And drew her towards me and asked her to dinner. Suddenly I wasn't thinking of Daisy and Gatsby anymore, but of this clean, hard, limited person who dealt in universal scepticism and who leaned back jauntily just within the circle of my arm. So this is for Nick. He finds comfort now in Jordan, who he describes with 3 adjectives: clean, hard, and limited. What that means is, if you look here, we've got a contrast. Well, the opposite of clean is dirty, the opposite of hard is soft, and the opposite of limited is complex. So for Nick, he feels like he's found somebody with whom he can now relate. Clean, hard, and limited. It suggests that the other people that he's surrounding himself with are dirty, soft, and complex. He likes this simpleness now. And who dealt in universal scepticism. So this is a belief. Not quite sure what I meant by that. And who leaned back jauntily, just within the circle of my arm. A phrase began to beat in my ears with a sort of heady excitement. This is heady excitement. There are only the pursued, the pursuing, the busy, and the tired. This is Nick's internal monologue here. He's not saying this aloud. Well, let's look at these 4 categories of people. He thinks he's worked humanity out, doesn't he? Ever the modest man, Nick. There are only the pursued. Well, who fits into that category? Daisy most clearly is pursued. The pursuing, well, Gatsby clearly is pursuing the pursued. The busy could refer to Jordan Baker and how she's busy. She's the integral cog that is going to turn this wheel in order to get Daisy and Gatsby together. And the tired, well, perhaps this is Nick actually becoming a little bit tired of this jazz age right now. So these characters could fit more than one category. Clearly, Gatsby isn't the only person pursuing people here. Myrtle is pursuing Tom as well. Who is pursued? Well, that makes Tom pursued in turn. And perhaps Jordan Baker is pursued by Nick. But it's kind of interesting, these four categories that Nick sees here. And Daisy ought to have something in her life, murmured Jordan to me. If Daisy ought to have something, then it means that she currently has nothing. That's what Jordan sees. Jordan sees Daisy and thinks she has nothing. Let's remember that Daisy is married, that she has this mansion, and that actually she's a mother. But to Jordan, she has nothing, perhaps emotionally. Does she want to see Gatsby? She's not to know about it. Gatsby doesn't want her to know. You're just supposed to invite her to tea. We passed a barrier of dark trees, and then the facade of 59th. There we go, look, dark trees, the facade. These are now, we're coming back into Gatsby's territory here, as we talked about light and shade constantly. So we passed a barrier of dark trees, and then a facade of 59th Street. A block of delicate pale light. Delicate pale light. This could refer to Daisy. Beamed down into the park. Unlike Gatsby and Tom Buchanan, I had no girl whose disembodied face floated along the dark cornices and blinding signs. And so I drew up the girl beside me, tightening my arms. Her wan, scornful mouth smiled, and so I drew her up closer, this time to my face. This is a lovely description of a lady with whom Nick apparently has great affection. A wan, scornful mouth, lacking in colour, ill health, isn't it? So Nick sees he doesn't have a girl whose disembodied face floated along dark cornices and blinding signs. Again, we've got a nice contrast here. He doesn't have somebody who is both dark and light to him. He doesn't have this complexity. He has somebody who's limited, somebody who's hard, but somebody who's clean. So, big contrast between Nick and Daisy at this point. Okay, I'm going to pause it there, and because I need a drink of water, and then I'll go into chapter 5 and I'll post that as another link.